Welcome, y'all, to this week's Deep Dive. We're setting down a spell right here in Overton County because today we're tackling something that's become, well, downright essential in our busy lives. The art and science of finding stillness.
That's right. If your internal monologue sounds like a demolition derby, or maybe just the morning traffic backed up on Highway 111, this deep dive is kind of your shortcut to mental quiet. We've collected sources detailing 8 distinct globally practiced techniques. Our goal today is, well, it's to move beyond just the surface level. We want to understand the mechanics of how folks, from ancient monks to modern CEOs, actually quiet their minds.
Yeah, absolutely. Our mission today is simple. We're going to unpack these powerful techniques, everything from just sitting still to, believe it or not, full-on whirling, and figure out which path might be the best, maybe the most practical fit for your journey right here in Livingston. We really want you walking away with a tool you can use today.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Let's start with the simplest concept, which, ironically, is often the hardest thing a human can attempt. We're talking about Zazen.
Zazen. It literally means seated meditation, and it's rooted deep in Zen Buddhism.
Right.
The core of Zazen is shikantaza, which basically translates to just sitting. Our sources really emphasize that this practice has no agenda. There isn't some goal you're trying to reach, You simply sit, spine tall, eyes kind of gently lowered, focused on the steady rhythm of your breathing.
Okay, but tell me, how do you manage the chatter? I mean, for a beginner, just sitting often feels like just suffering through boredom and a whole heap of painful thoughts. Bless your heart if you tried it cold. Huh. Yeah, that's a really common and honestly a necessary friction point. And the sources are clear on this. The practice isn't really about stopping the thoughts. It's about changing your relationship with them. In Zazen, you sort of treat thoughts like uninvited guests at a party.
Okay.
You don't ask them to leave, but you don't offer them a seat either. You just watch them bubble up, exist for a moment, and then kind of drift away, much like the steam rising off a hot cup of coffee on a cold Tennessee morning.
Ah, I like that. So the key insight we pull from the Zen text is really profound then. Enlightenment isn't something you acquire. It's what's left when all that mental noise and constant striving just fades away. The true self is already present. Zazen is simply the process of clearing the dust off the window pane so you can see it clearly.
Exactly. And what's fascinating here is how Zazen contrasts with the next one, Vipassanā. Vipassanā means to see things as they really are. Well, Zazen is that non-goal-oriented sitting. Vipassanā, which is one of the oldest techniques from early Buddhism in India, it's highly systematic and analytical.
Systematic. So it sounds like Vipassana is maybe a bit more active. If Zazen is watching clouds, what is Vipassana?
It's intense observation. Yeah, definitely more active and focus. You are systematically watching your mind and body, not controlling them now, but truly mapping them out. You usually start with the most basic physical event, the breath noticing where it touches your nostrils or maybe how your abdomen rises and falls. Then you methodically move your attention through the entire body, noting every single sensation that pops up. Tingling, warmth, tightness, maybe an intense itch or even a dull ache.
So you're not trying to ignore the pain or the itch. You are actually highlighting it, focusing on it.
Exactly right. You're giving it your full, non-judgmental attention. And the so what here is massive. By observing these fleeting physical sensations, you're training your brain to develop insight, specifically the realization of impermanence, anicca they call it. You witness firsthand that everything from a burst of irritation when a siren goes by outside to a throbbing knee is temporary. It rises, it persists for a bit, and then it passes away.
Okay, I see the relevance there. Wow, if you really get that frustration or anger or even joy is just a temporary state, a passing sensation, maybe you stop attaching your entire identity to it. That sounds like genuine freedom from just reacting all the time.
It is. The ancient sources point to it as the direct path to liberation from suffering. It's not about changing what happens to you, but about fundamentally changing how you perceive the transient nature of every single experience.
All right, now here's where it gets really interesting for me, moving away from pure observation to actually giving the mind a specific job to do. Let's talk about Transcendental Meditation, or TM. This comes from ancient Vedic traditions in India and kind of swept across the West back in the mid-20th century, right?
That's the one. The premise is quite simple, yet the sources suggest it's highly effective. Instead of wrestling with your thoughts, you give your mind a gentle, quiet rhythm to follow, using a personalized mantra, a specific word or sound repeated silently, effortlessly in your head.
Okay, but why does just repeating a sound work better than, say, trying to focus on something complicated, like a philosophical idea?
Well, the mantra acts almost like a neurological anchor. The sources explain that the mind is always naturally seeking a deeper, quieter level of existence. It wants rest. When you repeat the mantra effortlessly, and effortlessly is key, you're giving the mind something so simple that it doesn't really engage the complex reasoning parts of the brain. So the
Hmm.
brain relaxes, and the mantra naturally helps thoughts and anxieties just sort of float away without any force or struggle.
It's almost like giving your mind a cozy, worn path down a gentle hill instead of making it try to climb a steep mountain.
That's a great
Right.
analogy. Precisely. The goal is to slip into this profound, thought-free state that the yogic texts call turiya, or pure consciousness. You are fully aware, fully alert, but deeply, deeply rested. Think of that moment right before you drift off to sleep. You're aware of the room, maybe a sound outside, but your thoughts have mostly stopped ticking. TM aims to bring that depth of rest while you remain fully awake.
That deep rest state, wow, that feels like a powerful transition point. And we can connect this kind of receptive silence to the bigger picture of faith, especially something folks around the churches here in Overton County might know as contemplative prayer.
Absolutely. That's a really good connection. This is the quiet internal side of Christian spirituality. It traces roots way back to the Desert Fathers and Mothers, and later to medieval mystics like Julian of Norwich. It sort of flips the standard idea of prayer on its head. It's less about actively speaking to God, presenting requests or lists, and much more about simply being present with God, resting in that presence.
Okay, but how does one practically make that shift? Going from a more verbal, maybe petitionary prayer style to one of deep, sustained silence. That sounds like a big jump.
It can be. It often begins with some kind of grounding work, maybe using a sacred word like Maranatha or Abba, or perhaps a brief, repeated phrase from Scripture. This is similar to the method of Lectio Divina.
Right, Lectio.
You repeat the phrase gently until the intellectual meaning kind of fades into the background, and all that's left is the essence, the feeling of divine presence. The mind focuses inward, toward that presence of God that exists beyond the limits of our human language.
So the key takeaway here isn't really about getting an answer to a question, but more about transforming the knower, the person praying.
Precisely. Exactly. The practice often results in what the mystics called unknowing knowledge, or a cloud of unknowing. Faith moves beyond just intellectual ideas and structured beliefs into pure embodied trust, a felt sense. The sources say the heart softens, yielding deeper compassion and a real reliance on a presence that is felt rather than just reasoned out. It definitely requires giving up control, letting go, and actively, patiently waiting for that divine presence to settle in the quiet.
All right, now let's talk about moving, because let's be honest, for those of us who just can't sit still or maybe whose bodies resist being put in one spot for too long, thank goodness the sources provide options. First up, the movement practice of Qigong, pronounced Qigong. This comes from ancient China and literally means energy cultivation.
Ah yes, Qigong. It's often described as the peaceful cousin of Tai Chi. It's part meditation, part gentle movement, and definitely part breath work, all woven together. In Taoist philosophy, the universe and our bodies are powered by Qi, that vital life force. When that energy flows smoothly, you feel vibrant, balanced, alive. When it's stagnant or blocked, you might feel heavy, anxious, or just plain tired.
So Qigong is essentially about
Okay.
unclogging your internal energy plumbing system.
Huh. That's actually a great way to put it. Yes, the movements are typically slow, very deliberate, and always synchronized with a specific type of deep abdominal breathing. For instance, you might gently raise your arms as you inhale, really feeling the stretch and the expansion, and then lower them slowly as you exhale, focusing intensely on the sensation of release. These movements are designed to help qi circulate more freely through subtle energy channels in the body called meridians.
You know, the practical application here for us seems powerful. You don't need special equipment. You don't need a fancy studio. You can do these gentle balancing movements right in your own backyard or living room here in Overton County, cultivating energy instead of just burning it off through intense exercise.
That's right. And this raises an important question. What happens when movement becomes not just about health maintenance, but a form of intense, even radical devotion? That leads us directly to the breathtaking practice of Sufi whirling.
Oh yeah, this is one of the most mesmerizing forms of meditation I think I've ever seen. Comes from Sufism, right? The mystical branch of Islam, specifically the Mevlevi order founded by the poet Rumi. The goal, as I understand it, is to move past the ego and experience God directly through that continuous motion.
Yes, and the ritual itself is just steeped in symbolism. The dancers, they're called semizans, often wear black coats, which symbolize the grave or the ego, and then they shed them to reveal white robes underneath, symbolizing the shroud or purity. It's a kind of symbolic death and rebirth in the moment.
Wow.
And the spinning itself is highly controlled. It's not chaotic. The right hand is often held up, palm facing heaven, to receive divine energy or grace. And the left hand faces down towards the earth, channeling that grace into the world. The dancer becomes a conduit, a bridge between heaven and earth.
It just seems like it would create instant debilitating dizziness, though. How on earth does one achieve a meditative state while spinning like that?
It definitely requires extreme focus and training. But the sources and practitioners explain that after an initial period of turbulence, the physical sensation of dizziness actually fades. The body finds a kind of rhythmic equilibrium. The mind lets go. The movement itself becomes a prayer, a form of trance that frees the mind from its usual critical, judging, and calculating functions. It's described as an act of completely letting go of the ego, merging with the perceived rhythm of the universe, being, as Rumi might say, drunk on the love of God.
Whew. Well, if spinning like that ain't quite your style, how about the simple, fundamental act of just putting one foot in front of the other? We are talking about walking meditation, or kinhin.
Yes, kinhin. It's used traditionally by monks in China and Japan, often as a break between long periods of sitting meditation like Zazen. But it's also a powerful practice in itself, bringing that focused awareness found on the cushion right into daily life and movement. It really acknowledges that, hey, many people struggle to sit still, especially after maybe a long day of physical work or just feeling restless.
So tell us the technique. It can't just be like regular walking down the street, can it?
No, it's profoundly slow and deliberate, much slower than normal walking. You walk very slowly, carefully, syncing the movement with your breath. For example, you might lift your foot on the inhale, hold it suspended just briefly, and then set it down precisely on the exhale. Every single step becomes an anchor for your awareness, replacing that constant ticking of demanding thoughts. You feel the heels strike the ground, the arch roll through, the toes push off. Total concentration on the physical act of walking.
That's incredibly relevant for us here. It means you can turn walking from the parking lot into the courthouse, or maybe even just a quiet stroll down the beautiful streets of Livingston into a conscious spiritual practice. Any walk can become meditation.
Exactly. That's the beauty of it. The practice reminds us that spirituality isn't reserved only for those special times you set aside in a quiet room. It lives in every step, every moment, if we choose to pay attention. It's a powerful realization. Wherever your feet are right now, that's where the practice begins. No need to wait. Okay, finally, we have a practice that is, well, it's designed specifically to dismantle our usual rational way of processing information. Koan meditation.
Ah, the koinins. That sounds almost like intellectual torture, doesn't it? These are those famous mind-bending riddles from the Zen Rinzai tradition, like, what is the sound of one hand clapping? Or, what was your original face before your parents were born? They seem to have no logical answer. How do the sources say people keep from just getting completely frustrated or giving up?
Well, here's the twist. The frustration is the point, or at least a crucial part of the process. The purpose of the koan is not actually to find a neat, rational solution that you can write down. It's to exhaust the rational mind itself. You take the riddle, the koan given by a teacher, and you concentrate on it completely during sitting meditation, while walking, even while doing daily chores. The mind strains and struggles, trying desperately to apply logic, analysis, reason. But the koan is like a solid wall that logic just cannot penetrate.
So the struggle itself is the meditation, not getting past the struggle.
In a very real sense, yes. The struggle itself creates the necessary tension, the great doubt that fuels the breakthrough. The koan acts as a kind of mirror, reflecting back to you how your mind constantly tries to grasp, label, categorize, and explain everything it encounters. When you finally reach a point of complete intellectual exhaustion where the reasoning mind throws up its hands and just gives up because it recognizes the task is utterly impossible, that is the moment of potential release.
And that moment of total surrender, of letting go of the need to figure it out, leads to what Zen calls satori. Is that right?
Yes, satori is often described as a sudden flash of profound insight, a glimpse of reality as it is. It's where the perceived duality between self and the world, that illusion that separates you from everything else, momentarily dissolves. It's been compared to searching frantically for your glasses for hours, only to suddenly realize they were perched on your head the whole time. The solution wasn't found. The problem itself just vanished.
Wow. Okay. So let's bring this all back home. What does this all mean for us right here in Overton County? We've covered Zazen and Vipassanā for deep observation, TM and contemplative prayer for finding a gentle focus, Qigong, Whirling, and Kinhin for finding peace in motion, plus the mind breaker, koans. That's quite a toolbox.
It really is.
Yeah.
And the resources show us pretty clearly that regardless of your physical ability, your personality type, or your spiritual background or lack thereof, there's likely a path here for you to manage the mental noise. The application, I think, is simple. These aren't necessarily exotic rituals reserved for monks on mountaintops. They are practical tools for refocusing your attention. And peace, as we've seen, isn't usually found by running away from your life, but by fundamentally changing how you look at, how you experience the life you've already got right here.
Yeah, that feels right. The real breakthrough, it seems, as we've seen across all these different global practices, really comes when you stop trying so hard to force the stillness and simply allow the mental silt to settle on its own. We really encourage you, all y'all listening, just start small.
Absolutely. We challenge you this week. Find just 5 minutes. That's it. 5 minutes to try one of these techniques. Maybe it's just the slow, conscious act of walking from your front door out to the mailbox and back, really feeling your feet. That's kinhin. Or perhaps finding a quiet spot on the porch swing to just sit for those 5 minutes watching your breath, that's Zazen. Just notice what truth might be revealed underneath all the usual daily noise when you give it a chance. Don't chase the clouds, just watch them go by.
That's beautiful. And if this deep dive helped you find a little clarity today, maybe give you a new tool to try out, we'd be much obliged if you'd do us a kindness. Go ahead and like this deep dive, maybe drop a comment letting us know which technique you're fixing to try, and definitely subscribe so you don't miss our next chat.
And now, may you go forth with peace in your heart and steady feet on the ground. We pray that your burdens be lightened, your spirit refreshed, and that you find the quiet strength you need for every single step of your journey, right here in these beautiful hills of Tennessee. Amen.